There's a world, Chinese communist one, where the currency is either social points or how drippy you look. But a man, or rather a Shek, named Shek Warrior, which is a misspelling on my part. Shek Warrior has 24 hours to defeat as many tyrants as possible. They are currently threatening the gay world of World Winsby with capitalism and feminism. There are also some important family members that Shek Warrior must protect, which is Bir Guan, who is a complete useless dumbass, Ruby, who is an all-bark delusional yapper, and An Han, who is getting her back blown out by this medical student's master. And with no further ado, it's time to save the world. A man in black attacked Shek Warrior and robbed him of his Chinese passport and ID, so he was completely stuck here and unconscious. When he awoke, some weird kid was smacking him like he signed up for a power slap competition. This was Ruby. Shek Warrior has no idea who she is yet, because he was either hit in his head far too hard and unlocked some uncontrollable amnesia, or this was just some random kid who was trying to kill him by giving him an unskippable dialogue overdose. But one thing was very clear, Shek Warrior wasn't Chinese like her, and compared to the very Chinese vegetation and surrounding, Shek Warrior didn't belong here. He came from the world of Kenshi, the Sheks, but due to him being white as hell and not seasoning his food, he was outed and traveled the world and ended up being here. Now, he was stuck, but hey, it didn't seem too bad. Ruby and Shek Warrior took turns crossing the bridge, the one where she was too fat and careless, causing it to collapse. They met a man doing archery who was busy schizophrenically mumbling to himself. Once he noticed Shek Warrior, I thought he'd get roasted. But he was really chill and taught Shek Warrior the Chinese arts of shooting birds out of the sky and slowing down time. Totally a normal thing every Chinese citizen has the ability to do. Shek Warrior and this dude did a quick competition afterwards, and he was able to school this dude so bad he decided to retire from archery on the spot. I would too if I had 10 years of archery experience and got put down by a guy who looks like this with only 3 minutes of experience. Ruby and Shek Warrior eventually split up. Ruby went with Bir Guan, who you'll know about later, while Shek Warrior beat up a bunch of bandits and spoke with this super strange drug dealer. Instead of dope, he made Shek Warrior pay, so Shek Warrior could do a job for him, which was just beating up this kung fu bear. Shek Warrior does not get paid enough for this. In fact, he paid for this. He found this cheeked up man calling him Step Bro. After helping him, there was this strange black scene in the clapping sound, before he randomly told Shek Warrior to find all items like the beehive over there. What? Anyways, this was a good opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Shek Warrior had the opportunity to steal martial arts from this bear, which was Tai Chi. Well, we can kill 3 birds with 1 stone now. Shek Warrior performed the bear's Tai Chi on itself and paralyzed it for life. Afterwards, he climbed up a bee tree and was stung till his face swelled up like a balloon. Only then did he realize he had gotten the fire arrows from the step bro after retrieving the honey. He gave it to the step bro, which the step bro allowed him to learn something hot and naughty. Out of the 4 martial arts Shek Warrior was given, Shek Warrior took the liking to the twin blade moveset, cause 2 swords are better than 1. Don't worry, he isn't missing out on much. One was a gay fan, a gay umbrella, and a straight sword. Shek Warrior managed to get some practice in with the twin blades while traveling. In his head, he was already thinking about protecting Bir Guan, Ruby, and that thick-ass An Han. Some thieves bumped into him and commanded Shek Warrior to get out of the way. But Shek Warrior was not taking that disrespect, so he chased them down and got his ass whooped by a fat homeless guy and a guy with anger issues. This actually got Shek Warrior fuming. He was fighting with honor, but those cowards jumped him. Whatever. Shek Warrior now had to sit through the snake oil salesman's pitch. A guy with a super Chinese name was brought up. He was actually the champion of the tournament that was hosted here. Shek Warrior could earn a prize if he won, so he approached the Chinese man. And him seeing how he looked, he became super hostile and rude. So Shek Warrior decided to put this so-called champion in his place, which was actually a lot easier than he expected. This dude was a total pushover. Shek Warrior was just a newbie at this new martial art thing, and he was actually kicking butt. The wind definitely got to Shek Warrior's head. So thinking that he's the stuff, he approached a struggling single mom and challenged her to a death battle. If Shek Warrior won, he got an ego boost. If she won, her child would get a meal. Shek Warrior didn't really want his wallet to be emptied. And guess what happened next? The single mom went home and got her child a warm meal and cancer medicine. Oh hell nah. Shek Warrior is not about to let that happen. So after getting his wands back and preventing a starving child from getting a warm meal tonight, Shek Warrior felt a lot better. He did win the tournament after all, so it was time to collect his prize. The snake oil salesman though was a scummy dude who sold things at an exorbitant amount. Shek Warrior was not about to pay that price, so he extorted the guy instead. The item inside was actually something good. The item he got allowed him to use items to buff his weapon. This was extremely useful because Shek Warrior is the type of guy to buff himself for 10 minutes before fighting a rabbit. He was also a DPS fighter. Shek Warrior and Ruby decided to split the spoils, but the Bible warned of this. Ruby got super greedy and ran off with the items he bought and fought for her. Anyway, Shek Warrior spent some more time talking to Ruby. She wanted to stay here and spend Shek Warrior's money. Birgwan stepped in for Shek Warrior and offered to let her empty his pockets instead. Thanks Birgwan. If you couldn't tell, this was a festival. It was a crappy one with only 30 people attending, but it was still kinda cozy. He encountered something super strange here. There were a lot of weirdos here, but this old man doing frog flips is definitely the weirdest one. He managed to convince Shek Warrior to be a weirdo as well, and Shek Warrior ended up learning the way of the leaping frog. He promised he wouldn't use it, but how could he resist? Some kid who jumped too hard on solid stone ground broke in and told him to go fetch his lost ball. Does Shek Warrior look like the type of guy to go find balls for kids? We're warriors anyway, so no matter what the odd request is, Shek Warrior would be there to save the day. Shek Warrior was able to explore the sewers. It was a hidden place from the public, but well known by these bandits. Shek Warrior was also able to test out his leaping frog, and it was freaking amazing. There was a lot of mayhem to be done, so Shek Warrior blew anything he could find, crossed the bridge, blew up a secret wall, and beat up some more bandits. He also found a man who was on the verge of death. On him, he had the Book of the Cloud Step. So Shek Warrior, using his ultra brain, learned it in 10 milliseconds and proceeded to the next room. Here, there was also a lot more enemies he was able to easily take down. But more kept coming, until this dude who looks like he eats elephants for breakfast showed up and began running Shek Warrior's fade. Shek Warrior was also able to beat him up though, and get to this one stone slab that hinted at a hidden treasure. All he had to do was grovel in front of Genghis Khan here, and he was able to get a jackload of stuff. Shek Warrior then returned to the surface. This place reeked of dookie, and he'd rather be getting some vitamin D in the hot sun than staying here. He was already deficient enough. Shek Warrior was pretty thirsty for challenges, so he approached this gang member and whooped him really damn badly. His bow did hurt a lot though, and I don't think he was using a blunt bow in this sparring match. The next opponent was this little girl who was studying for her math exam. I don't really remember why Shek Warrior challenged her, because she's just a kid, but he now has a reason. Cause mid-fight, she was flaming him and talking about the dad he never had. So Shek Warrior had to ensure that this kid was too crippled to attend school tomorrow. Instead, she'll be going to the hospital. The grandfather of that same kid watched the whole thing go down. So Shek Warrior decided to be a bully and start talking smack to him, which earned him an ass whooping of a lifetime. Yeah, he picked the wrong old man to mess with. The old man was extremely tough. One hit and he would be making Shek Warrior eat his 10-piece McDonald's combo. This was an extremely humbling experience for Shek Warrior because despite being an outcast, even back home, he held his pride in the fact that he was a tough son of a gun. But for the next 1000 hours, this old man sent Shek Warrior to the Shadow Realm and made him look like a fish out of water. After so many losses, so much CTE, Shek Warrior was eventually able to get at least one win, but the score was still very clear, 1 to 1000. This was definitely a sign for Shek Warrior to stay clear of the retirement home and instead focus on beating kids and women up. Shek Warrior spoke to Uncle Guan to wrap things up before taking his leave and encountering something very weird. It was a man frozen in place by Medusa. He helped Shek Warrior unlock a new skill, which was just to help this old man exit the mannequin challenge. Things got really awkward afterwards when he began bawling his eyes out in front of Shek Warrior. So Shek Warrior took his leave and arrived at Heaven's Pier. This place was so peaceful and nice. It was the place that Shek Warrior and Ruby grew up at. He encountered a very sketchy man offering to teach him a special skill, but when he tried it, the entire village began jumping him. He was bamboozled. The village now instantly hated him. Ruby's father, Uncle Zhao, was now the only person willing to talk to him. Next was Aunt Han, who was in blissful retreat. She was as bad as always, and I could tell by her face that she was falling for Shrek Warrior's pristine, noble features. She wanted Shrek Warrior to serve the customers, because she was too lazy, and she just wanted to stay here, me-mugging everyone in the tavern. God, she's gorgeous. Anyway, a random chick got way too handsy with Shrek Warrior, and surprise surprise, Odd Han got jealous and stepped in to get her mans back. At this point, Shrek Warrior was around level 10. It wasn't much, but enough to fold any enemies he came across. Shrek Warrior went back to check on Odd Han's parting tear stash. A peasant who was in charge of making the pots completely messed up after a few dudes came through, messing up the place. Shek Warrior did not take a liking to this, and whoever did this cannot go unpunished. So Shek Warrior followed the trail into a cave, storing a buttload of parting tears. Damn! Is Odd Han an alcoholic? Here's where Shrek Warrior learned something, even more surprising. The horse thieves who beat his cheeks in were here, laid out, and the only one that was still alive, with his cheeks uncracked, was this traumatized and paranoid guy. Before Shrek Warrior knew it, some dude dropped out and started farming infamy points. Shrek Warrior realized he was now up against a guy who could do voodoo magic by just swinging his blade. Compared to everyone else he has gone up against, this dude made short work of Shrek Warrior, and for the first time in Shrek Warrior's life, he was the one on his knees. China has definitely humbled him, but luckily, this guy named Killer Blade only wanted on Han's cheeks. Aw, hell no. Yeah, if Shrek Warrior can't beat this guy in a fight, he'll just have to defeat him in the mine. He isn't giving up on Han for nothing. The guy must have known Shrek Warrior's plan, so he killed a horse thief to attempt to intimidate Shrek Warrior. Little does he know, Shrek Warrior hated that guy anyways. That dude beat his skull in one time. And it doesn't really matter if it's him or some ruffian like this guy who does him in. Shrek Warrior was then hogtied and made to ride on a horse with Killer Blade. On the side, he randomly stopped and started calling out to some invisible folks. Yeah, we definitely need to get out of here. This dude is nuts. The moment Shrek Warrior got a chance, he made a run back to Blissful Retreat. The way back had him take the path to Epstein's dungeon and through a narrow crack meant for non-fat people. Shrek Warrior must have taken the wrong turn, because instead of the peaceful and calming scenery of Blissful Retreat, he ended up in a strange, sneaky, dilapidated town full of insane maniacs who emanated murderous, ominous vibes. Shrek Warrior wanted nothing to do with that. After ages of getting lost and taking wrong turns, Shrek Warrior returned to the tavern where he learned that An Han was somewhere else. She was at home, and when he spoke to that guy named Dudu, who was wondering why his master was sneaking off with An Han. What? Hold up. Some ain't right. Ain't no way. Also, isn't An Han married? Shek Warrior here learned. Maybe the beautiful and perfect An Han he had in his head never existed. Maybe the real An Han was at 304. Maybe she was meant for the streets. Shrek Warrior wanted to bawl his eyes out, but he was a man. So he instead visited a clinic where his loyal hot babe was. This clinic is a place where he could heal his migraines. The fight from the old man back at the tournament took a toll on his brain. I think he has CTE now. So what other way to heal it than to get a sloppy happy ending from a Chinese woman? After 5 seconds, Shrek Warrior went upstairs and found that someone had left a pile of shit at the window. It led to a well that was overflowing with brown nightmare. Shrek Warrior, being the bravest and hottest Shrek in the world, ventures down into the well. He encounters traps, strange faceless people, and lots of money. This place was definitely ominous, especially the guy singing while cradling a treasure chest. Shrek Warrior passed the vibe check by joining the singing. He picked up a flute and started playing a masterpiece. And oh man, could this man sing. For that amazing performance, these dudes decided to give the life savings to him. Now, Shrek Warrior was rich, millionaire. He was even able to learn some cool martial arts, which the only thing he picked was twin blades. He already had that, but why the hell not? After learning the same movesets over and over, Shrek Warrior's migraines returned. But when he awoke, he found himself in hell. The place was completely steeped in red. When he left the room, he encountered a recollection of what happened to those who came here. It was obvious all of them got folded, a clear warning to Shrek Warrior not to come any closer. But there was also something different between Shrek Warrior and these peasants. He was the main character. He had plot armor. So he slipped through another vagina wall and walked up the stairway of doom. Who the hell was he about to fight? Moog? The person Shrek Warrior encountered was no other than An Han. Shrek Warrior wanted to ask why she was acting all edgy and acting like a hoe, but to be honest, she was looking even better, dog. Instead of happy ending, Shrek Warrior got his skull beaten for snooping around her business. It happened over and over again. She wasn't just strong, but it seemed like she was a giant hater. Like all her life, she has been wanting to carve his eyeballs out and eat it. The disrespect was far too much, and she was beating his ass way too badly. He was beginning to remember the lessons of a pimp named Slipback. If she doesn't want a nice guy, she was going to get the backhand. Shek Warrior began beating the brakes off on Han like she was his trad wife who forgot to make him a sandwich. Holy damn! After beating on Han, Shek Warrior returned to the real world. He wasn't really sure if that was really on Han, cause the one he knows is really hot. Shek Warrior was able to make a new friend next. It only happened after Shek Warrior gave up the flute he stole from him. After Shek Warrior left the dungeon, along the way back to Blissful Retreat, Shek Warrior met someone far more handsome and hot than he is.
Do you guys see this freak of nature? At least you look cooler now. Before you look like... Okay, right now you just look like a freak. You look scary, you look terrifying. Oh my goodness, a demon just spawned on me.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's this freak of nature, Trans Roach.